Governments around the world are introducing new laws specifically addressing crypto. Some for better, some for worse, but at least everyone knows what the rules are. Meanwhile, the US government has been derelict. Without a rulebook, crypto has been left to wander around in the dark, getting mugged by shady securities regulators. It's a policy of evasion, and it's not working. Congress can't ignore crypto forever, and neither can they stamp it out. This means it's only a matter of time before crypto laws make it onto the books in the US. So today, we take a look at some of the most recent proposals, how likely they are to become law, and what it all means for crypto. Stay tuned. I'll start by reminding you of how federal laws are passed in the United States. But if you paid attention in school, then feel free to use the timestamps below to skip ahead. Anyway, the US Congress consists of two chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Proposed legislation, also known as a bill, can be written by anyone, but for it to be considered by Congress, it has to be introduced by a member of Congress. New bills can begin life in either the House or the Senate. After being brought before the House or Senate, a new bill will be scrutinized first by a subcommittee and then a committee of members who focus on a specific policy area. In this stage, lawmakers can invite in, or in some cases compel, experts, advocates, and opponents to appear and provide testimony. If both the subcommittee and committee agree to move forward with the bill, it's reported to the chamber floor, where the majority party leadership schedules it for consideration by the entire chamber. This stage is a little precarious for the bill because if it's scheduled several months down the line, or in some cases not at all, this can effectively kill it. Anyway, once the scheduled day comes, the bill is debated and often amended before being voted on. If the vote returns more yeas than nays, then the bill will be sent to the other chamber, where it goes through more or less the same process, from subcommittee to committee to consideration by the whole chamber. If both chambers of Congress pass the bill with a simple majority, then it's submitted to the president to either be signed into law or vetoed. Fun fact, if the president doesn't act within 10 days, the bill automatically becomes law. Anyway, that is the textbook version. In practice, however, it's not easy for individual members of Congress to introduce a new bill and have it actually reach the president's desk. There are countless hurdles that can block a bill, from scheduling shenanigans and filibusters to powerful opposition lobbies. This has led to some interesting phenomena, such as the Christmas tree meta. Where there is a bill that has a good chance of being passed by both the House and the Senate, lawmakers will often seek to decorate it with amendments containing their own legislative agenda, which may have nothing to do with the actual contents of the bill. Okay, that's the recap done. Now let's take a look at what crypto bills are making their way through the congressional pipeline at the moment.
Block van der Chainhausen, that was a brutal game of rugby. You and the rest of the team must be hurting after that defeat. Yeah, look, it was so tough out there today, you know. Everyone put their bodies on the line, everyone stood up to be counted, but yeah, we're gutted not to come away with a win, for sure. So you came up against a very physical side who were up for a battle all over the park. Did the fact that they had the Coin Bureau deals page behind them count against you? Yeah, look, for sure, any side that has that sort of firepower backing it up is always going to be hard to break down. Any team in the world is going to want the Coin Bureau deals page in its locker, for sure. Those 70% trading fee discounts and $100,000 sign-up bonuses, they really seem to make the difference in the second half. Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie, Brew, we could not compete on that level, and when the other side were able to deploy those massive discounts on hardware wallets, then it was pretty much game over at that point, for sure, yeah. Now, Block, obviously everyone back home is going to be hugely disappointed with today's result. Is there any message you'd like to send to your fans? Yeah, look, what can I say, but they should check out the Coin Bureau deals page, you know. You have to recognise quality when you see it, so yeah, hats off to them, they made the difference out there today, for sure. Wise words to finish, thanks, Block. Yeah, all good, Blue, yeah, cheers, yeah.
So the first bill that you should be aware of is the Bitcoin Act of 2024. Music to my ears already. This is the short working title of a draft bill introduced by Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming. Now, you'll remember that Donald Trump spoke at the Bitcoin Nashville conference in July. During his speech, he pledged to treat the government's BTC holdings as a, quote, strategic national Bitcoin stockpile. But notably, while Trump promised not to sell the government's BTC holdings, he stopped short of pledging to have the Treasury actively accumulate more. However, just a few minutes after he left the stage, Senator Lummis appeared holding a draft copy of the Bitcoin Act of 2024. Anyone left underwhelmed by Trump's pledge will have been delighted because Lummis's bill proposes a federal government Bitcoin purchase program. Under this program, the Treasury would accumulate up to 1 million BTC over 5 years. This would bring the government's holdings to more than 1.2 million BTC, or 5.7% of the max supply. The bill would also prohibit the government from selling any BTC for a period of 20 years, unless it's sold to pay off the national debt. Lummis claims that the US will be, quote, debt-free because of Bitcoin. But this seems like wishful thinking because the US national debt is currently north of $35 trillion. So just for illustrative purposes, to repay this with Bitcoin, the US Treasury would have to accumulate all 21 million BTC and then sell the entire supply at $1.7 million per coin. Well, you have to admire the ambition. Anyway, the senator's bill sits on a spectrum in between Donald Trump's stockpile and the strategic reserve proposed by former presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. At the time of making this video, Trump has not suggested that his administration would buy any new Bitcoin, whereas RFK Jr. has advocated accumulating a strategic reserve of 4 million BTC. And recently, RFK Jr. dropped out of the race and announced his support for Trump, who has returned the favor by inviting Kennedy to join his transition team if he's elected. As such, it's quite possible that RFK Jr. could end up working in a second Trump administration, where he might advocate for a Bitcoin purchasing program more ambitious than the one proposed by Senator Lummis. This is pure speculation, though. At the moment, Lummis's bill is the only concrete proposal in Washington to have the US government buy Bitcoin. And to be honest, we're not exactly sure how concrete it is. After all, it is an election year, and members of Congress have been known to introduce eye-catching bills that have no chance of becoming law just for the sake of publicity. We're not here to impugn Senator Lummis's motives, but Congress has failed to pass crypto legislation far more vanilla than the Bitcoin Act, so it does seem like a pretty long shot. But, on the other hand, the Senate is unlikely to consider the bill before this year's elections. The Senate is only narrowly controlled by the Democratic Party at the moment, and it could well flip Republican in November. If that happens, Lummis predicts that the pro-crypto Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina could become the chair of the Senate Banking Committee, on which she also currently sits. And under these conditions, the Bitcoin Act might really have a shot at becoming law. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, drop us a like, subscribe, and ping that bell button too. You'll give this video a boost and put yourself first in line for our next upload. Now, our next pending crypto bill was also introduced by Senator Lummis earlier this year, but this time in collaboration with New York Democratic Party Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who currently sits on the Senate Agriculture Committee. Their bipartisan bill is the Lummis-Gillibrand Payment Stablecoin Act. Now, if you're already getting déjà vu, I don't blame you. By our count, this is the 5th stablecoin bill that has been introduced to the House or Senate since 2020. Others include the Clarity for Payment Stablecoins Act of 2023, a very similar bill introduced to the House by Patrick McHenry, the Republican chair of the House Financial Services Committee. Now, the Lummis-Gillibrand bill supersedes a previous bill introduced by the two senators in 2022, and then reintroduced in 2023, the Responsible Financial Innovation Act. That bill, like the FIT21 passed in the House earlier this year, was an attempt at comprehensive crypto regulation that would likely struggle to make it through the current Senate. Stablecoin legislation has also failed on multiple occasions, but it is still being prioritized as the most viable first baby step towards regulating crypto more broadly. This is just because stablecoins are more palatable to skeptical lawmakers than other cryptocurrencies. After all, to support the issuance and use of US dollar stablecoins is to support the continued dominance of the dollar worldwide. De-dollarization of the global economy may be happening slowly, but it is a real phenomenon that is likely to continue. As such, helping dollar stablecoins keep their lead seems like an easy win for Congress. And that's not to mention the material benefit to the Treasury that comes from issuers buying US government debt to back their stablecoins. So, stablecoin regulation makes a pretty good gateway drug for Congress. But would it be good for stablecoins? Well, let's see. The Lummis-Gillibrand Payment Stablecoin Act inherits many of the same provisions from previous stablecoin bills. You can think of these provisions as the stablecoin bill starter pack. For example, issuers of US dollar stablecoins would be required to hold one-to-one reserves in cash or similarly liquid equivalents like short-term US Treasury bills. They would also be required to file monthly attestations of their reserves, implement anti-money laundering provisions, and comply with international sanctions imposed by the US government and its allies. Now, this is all pretty standard fare. The bill also prohibits algorithmic stablecoins entirely. After the disastrous depegging and collapse of Terra's algorithmic UST stablecoin in 2022, this is also unsurprising. Although it's worth pointing out that the bill's definition of algorithmic stablecoins seems broad enough to include novelty structures like the DAI stablecoin, which might become a victim of the bill. Now, payment stablecoin is defined in the bill as a crypto asset, quote, that is or is designed to be used as a means of payment or settlement, and whose issuer is obligated to redeem the asset for a fixed amount of US dollars. This is very similar to the language used in Patrick McHenry's House bill, and notably, it opens the door to crypto payments, which could be very bullish for payment-focused cryptos. That means smart contract cryptos, as basically all stablecoins exist on smart contract cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and Solana. Food for thought. Now, Lummis-Gillibrand's bill is more distinctive when it comes to who can issue stablecoins and how they will be regulated. It was specifically designed to preserve the US state and federal dual banking system and prevent its subversion by stablecoin issuers. As such, the bill allows state and federal banks to issue stablecoins under their existing charters. It also effectively forces stable issuers to turn into a limited type of bank. Specifically, the bill permits state-regulated non-depository trust institutions to issue stablecoins up to a $10 billion market cap. For reference, the market cap of Circle's USDC is $34.5 billion and Tether's USDT is almost $120 billion. So, clearly, they need not apply. For non-banks to issue stablecoins in excess of $10 billion market cap, they would have to obtain a depository institution charter from the Federal Office of the Controller of the Currency. So, what does all this actually mean for existing stablecoins? Well, the bill seems to be showing Tether the exit, as it would not be compliant under the current circumstances. Thanks to an extraterritorial clause in the bill, US entities would be prohibited from holding or transacting in USDT, as Tether is headquartered in the British Virgin Islands, supposedly. Aside from Tether's offshore status, it also only redeems USDT amounts above $100,000 and reserves the right to refuse redemption at any time and for any reason. This also makes Tether non-compliant. In addition, the bill's reserve requirements would also disqualify Tether, as USDT is partially backed by riskier assets, again making Tether non-compliant. However, most of USDT's transaction activity is driven by retail users and remittances outside the US, so while the bill would be a blow to Tether, it probably wouldn't be fatal. Now, Senator Lummis has been quite explicit about how the bill picks winners and losers. She openly favours Circle over Tether, which is not surprising when you consider that Circle is headquartered in the US, while Tether is offshore. However, the bill might also put Circle's feet to the fire. Currently, Circle lacks the corporate structures needed to comply, so to continue operating, it would have to seek further licensing. Paxos has demonstrated that this is possible by obtaining a limited-purpose trust charter in New York. But if regulators don't want to play ball with Circle, its business could easily be disrupted. Now, another novel element of Lummis-Gillibrand's bill relates to stablecoin failures. If an issuer becomes insolvent, it would be handled by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or FDIC. Essentially, this means that stablecoin failures would be handled similarly to bank failures. This is quite ambitious, and it may be tricky to get crypto skeptics in Congress to vote for such a provision. Senator Gillibrand has said that the bill was drafted in collaboration with the relevant federal and state agencies, and it certainly looks like it was. Now, ultimately, this bill is less about legitimizing existing stablecoins and adding consumer protections than it is about empowering banks vis-à-vis stablecoin issuers. This is not exactly great news for any stablecoin issuers, unless, of course, Circle can obtain the necessary licenses to continue operating, in which case Lummis-Gillibrand are basically handing it a monopoly in the US. That, of course, would be very good for Circle and the US government. However, having a stablecoin monopoly that is subject to heavy regulation by the federal government is a recipe for centralization and censorship. Although, that said, it's not like the current Circle Tether duopoly is particularly decentralized or indeed censorship resistant. They both regularly freeze assets at the behest of governments around the world. Regulation that brings stablecoins closer under the purview of banks and federal regulators is likely to only streamline this process further. And in this sense, the Lummis-Gillibrand bill is a reminder of the US crypto industry's regulatory dilemma. Basically, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. Without coherent regulation, the SEC is likely to continue harassing the industry unchecked. Chairman Gary Gensler has even said that stablecoins are securities, which is just nuts. Clearly, we can't go on like this. The Lummis-Gillibrand bill and Representative McHenry's parallel bill in the House would classify stablecoins as non-securities. But while this should keep the SEC at bay, crypto would be subject to more invasive control by the government and the Federal Reserve. Anything that does not empower the government with more control over crypto is unlikely to become law in the current Congress. Then again, of course, election season is underway. As Senator Lummis put it back in April, quote, "We're getting close to the time here in Congress when politics takes over policy." Indeed. The window for the Democratic and Republican parties to pass bipartisan legislation this year has become extremely slim. In August, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer told a Zoom call full of crypto industry bigwigs that he was confident about, quote, getting something passed out of the Senate this year, saying, quote, "I believe we can make that happen." Well, he'll have to get his skates on then, because the Senate will only be in session for 15 more days before the election. So, unless the likes of Lummis, Gillibrand and McHenry can execute a Christmas tree maneuver of some kind, it's quite unlikely that we'll see any crypto legislation passed until 2025. I wouldn't hold my breath for President Biden signing the Bitcoin Act into law anytime soon, if I were you. Next year, however, it's possible that the House, Senate and the White House will be controlled by Republicans. Now, this is no guarantee that any laws beneficial to crypto will actually be passed, but it would likely diminish the power of crypto skeptics in Congress. If this happens, the content of any new crypto bills introduced will likely not need to appeal to crypto skeptics at all, and they may be easier to pass through both chambers of Congress to boot. This could be a significant win for the crypto industry and make the next few years plain sailing when compared with the current regulatory climate. Conversely, both the Senate and the White House could remain in Democratic Party hands. This would likely mean more of the same for Congress, where compromise with skeptics is essential for getting anything crypto-related off the ground. But if Congress changes little, then the change in president may be more strongly felt. In other words, the ball could be in Kamala Harris's court. She could indeed reset the Democratic Party's relationship with crypto if she really wanted to. She could take the lead and encourage her party to work with the industry on getting reasonable regulation passed. On the other hand, she has yet to mention crypto at all during her campaign. The fact that we still don't know her views on crypto suggests that she is not the degen that Donald Trump is. Unfortunately, it is possible that she could continue her silence into office and leave crypto up to the SEC. However, unless Harris turns out to be openly hostile to crypto, we do suspect that the next 4 years will see more in the way of legislation and fewer SEC enforcement actions. The SEC has become highly unpopular, and this has created a real sense of urgency around regulation on both sides of the aisle. It's now so overdue in the US that it seems inevitable that one of these bills will be passed in the next Congress. Let's just hope that whichever bill makes it over the line does the industry more good than harm. Fingers crossed. Right, and that's all for today, folks. So let us know what kind of crypto regulation you would like to see in the comments. Smash the like if you don't want to see the US government hoovering up all 21 million BTC. And don't forget to subscribe and turn your bell notifications on so you can keep up with what politicians are trying to do to your portfolio. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. This is Guy, signing off.